The Cincinnati Reds lineup couldn't hit sand at the beach. They couldn't hit water in the ocean. They couldn't, well, you get the idea.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff, he's Steve, and today's Locked On Reds podcast a little bit later on, we're going to tell you why Graham Ashcraft coming back is awesome for two different reasons. In just a few minutes, we'll tell you what the lineup would look like next year if the Reds sit on their hands this offseason. Let's hope they don't do that. But we'll start with why August is a microcosm for all of our worries about the Reds lineup in 2026. Because, Steve, we entered this season hoping that a lot of guys would take a step forward. And quite frankly, just about all of them took a step back, if not fell off the cliff completely. And the lineup that we hoped to see never happened. And what we were left with was the doom of the 2026 season.
Yeah, doom is a good word. This lineup, man, you know, we went in with a good chance that the guy Hope was going to be the MVP of this team. We talked about that the last offseason, and that dude never showed up. He never got here. He's not in this lineup. You look around that locker room right now. You look around that clubhouse, and the amount of failure, the amount of disappointment, the amount of guys that did not rise to their potential is overwhelming. And the record really reflects the level of disappointment that you have with this roster. You know, for me, it begins with Matt McLain, a guy that the Reds really needed to be a solid contributor to this lineup. And he has just spent an entire season floundering. And for every bright spot that there's been in this lineup, there has been an antithesis. There's been a guy for every good moment. There's been a guy that's delivered a bad one. And this is the result you expect from a team that performs that way.
Yeah, if Bob Ross were painting the Cincinnati Reds lineup, there'd be a lot of happy trees on that painting because he'd have to be covering up a lot of smudges because that's what we've seen on the lineup sheet all year long. Like you talk about Matt McLain, Noelvi Marte was another huge X factor that we said if things go right, if he steps forward, if the progress happens, then this lineup can get where we want them to go. And now we're talking about, have we seen the last of Noelvi Marte in a Reds uniform? He's about to hit arbitration. There's an argument to be made that he should be a non-tender candidate as much as he should get a raise in arbitration for next season. So that's kind of been the whole season. August itself has presented everything that we worry about with this team. August, Steve, has been bad. There's no sugarcoating. There's no two ways about it. The Reds lineup has been horrible. They've been barely above the Mendoza line, and by barely, I mean 1 point. As a team, they're batting .201. As a team, their on-base percentage is .280, and their slugging percentage is .354. Their slash line, Steve, looks like a lot what we would think, I don't know, Keith Brian Hayes or what TJ Friedl's been doing, although those guys have been even worse than that. But it's been horrible for this month, and it's all led to them averaging 3.6 runs per game. And I did a little bit of maths on that as well. If you take out the 11-run outburst the other day in Arizona, they're averaging 3.3 runs per game. So literally chalk them up for 3 runs. If they give up 4, well, oh well.
Yeah, the strikeout percentage. You look at the lineup and the way that they're just hacking at things. A 9.42 strikeout per game, 26.4 of all at bats or Ks, Jeff. That's basically, you know, the entire month is a swing and a miss. And that's the thing they're best at, is swinging and missing. I mean, they, you know, what's the old adage? Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That is very much true. And there's a lot of barns in Ohio, and the Reds can't find one to hit.
I think of this old saying, PlayStation 2 used to play Tiger Woods 2004, and David Faraday was on that game as one of the announcers. And if you hit a bad shot, he'd just be like, boy, this is one of those days you just want to throw your clubs in the lake, huh? But the way you're playing, you might miss the lake. And that's kind of how it feels with this Reds lineup. I mean, they are bottom 5, and this has been talked about a lot, the velocity factor of the season. If a guy has velocity, the Reds struggle. But really what they struggle at the most is hitting sinkers, sliders, and changeups. Basically, if Rhett Lauder pitched against this lineup, he would be an all-star because this lineup just cannot hit that combination of pitching. And that's what we have seen here recently. That's all the Giants pitching staff seems to have. Everybody that comes out of that pen, because we've seen mostly bullpen days because they've had guys get hurt, starting pitchers get hurt early on in the first 2 games. It's been mostly bullpen for the Giants. They're all coming out throwing sinkers, and the Reds got no answer for that. And then if they just say, you know what, I'm just going to change it up. I'm just going to throw a little bit slower pitch. The Reds got no answer for that either. It's ridiculous to see how this team has, how this lineup has devolved here in the month of August after their fearless leader was talking about how they think they still got a chance. I could still, sneak on into this one. He didn't say sneak on in, but, I extrapolated there. But Nick Krall after the trade deadline was just like, we still think we have a good team. Well, they're hitting 201, Nick. What we got now?
Yeah, don't bother Nick Krall with the facts and the stats, buddy. That's not what he's worried about. The only metric that matters in that front office is Phil Castellini's bank account, and that's doing just fine. The strikeout situation is bothersome. The breaking pitch stuff is bothersome. We got asked on Twitter, you and I. Twitter X yesterday, day before, who's at fault? Do we blame the hitters? Do we blame Valleca? Do we blame Tito? And, I keep coming back to the fact that the Reds have had 7 hitting coaches in the last 14 seasons. I keep coming back to the fact that Terry Francona has yet to take an at-bat this season. And, I think that the real answer lies within something that you said, I don't know, a week or so ago, which is this team cannot evaluate the talent that they have. This team cannot rank its farm system. They just have no idea what they're doing. And I think at the end of the day, they've ended up with players that simply aren't as good as they thought they were.
And speaking of that evaluation, here's a nugget for you on the month of August. Take this one to your next get-together with Reds fans and see what they think about this. Nathaniel Lowe, who has played 2 games for the Reds this month, in the month of August. In those 2 games, has as many hits as Noelvi Marte does in the month of August. Noelvi Marte, by the way, played 9 games, not 2 games. And Nathaniel Lowe has more hits than Michael Toglia or TJ Friedl. And Michael Toglia played 8 games, and he's probably not going to play anymore. He's got to, have surgery to repair torn labrum. And then TJ Friedl has played 5 games in the month of August. TJ Friedl, Steve, has turned into a bunt or nothing, which is sad. Like, I watch him come up to the plate, even with the bases empty, and the third baseman is standing there shaking hands with the pitcher. And TJ Friedl still tries to lay down a bunt. And I don't know why he's not even just trying to swing away at this point. He has so little confidence in his own swing that he's trying to bunt when the third baseman is saying, I dare you to. And he still tries anyway. It's mind-boggling to see that.
Yeah, you look at TJ Friedl's game right now, and it's a shell. He's just a shell of the guy that he once was. And we're going to talk about this here in a little bit. Looking at next year, they've got to non-tender him, and I'm starting to worry that they won't.
Oh, let's not go there, because the moves that they need to make, they've got to make some moves, because this lineup, it's got to be a focus for them going into the off season. They've got to do a lot of work and make some big changes, because if they think the status quo is just going to take a step forward collectively. We've learned over the last 2 years that's not the case. If you think you know who's going to go yard today, you got to head on over to FanDuel.com and check out Daily Dingers, because every day throughout the rest of the Major League Baseball season, you can guess who's going to hit a homer in their game. And if you win, you're going to get a profit boost token to get some extra winnings on your next wager over at FanDuel.com. And looking at the Reds and Giants here today, the Reds finally scored, period, in the 9th inning of Game 2 against the Giants. So here in Game 3, you got Landon Roop on the mound. You got a sinker, changeup, breaking ball guy. Quite frankly, any pitches coming plate were kind of baffle the Reds, but Sal went yard yesterday. I think Sal's going to go yard again today. Hit number 29 on the homer number 29 on the season, and I think he should be your daily dinger choice over at FanDuel.com. So are you ready? Get in on the action right now over at FanDuel.com. Play Daily Dingers, make your free pick, and get some extra winnings on your next wager. That's all over at FanDuel.com, an official partner of Major League Baseball.
You already live this team each and every day. Elevate your game. Join the Everydayer Club. LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer. The link's in the show description. $5 a month, $50 a year. It's going to get you ad-free Locked On Reds. It's going to be in the audio feeds for you. Never have to listen to an ad ever again over in the Everydayer Club. And we're going to have our first hangout coming up, folks. We're going to be getting together on September 5th, 9 p.m. Eastern time. You're going to get an email if you're a member of the Everydayer Club with a link. We're going to do that on Google Hangouts. It's not for recording. It's not for public dissemination. It's just going to be us with a beverage, hanging out and talking ball. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're on the fence about joining the Everydayer Club, now's the time, because you'll get to participate in the inaugural hangout with Jeff and I.
All right, not going to be scandalous. I want to throw that out there. I don't know why that came off that way. It's not going to be scandalous.
But you don't know that. If there's beverages involved, you don't know. Don't you?
We're going to work hard to make sure it's not scandalous.
You are not going to put me in a corner, sir. I am going to have some. Wait a minute. Hang on.
Wait, do I have to be there for this?
I am prepared for this particular hangout.
Sorry, technical difficulties overlay.
Thank you very, very much. All right, listen, Jeff, looking ahead to next season, you laid out a pretty good case for a total overhaul of the Reds front office in the show you did yesterday, and thanks for covering. I was feeling miserable yesterday.
You didn't have Taco Bell, did you?
Yeah, I did not, but okay. I should have just leaned into that. You're right. I got the same feeling in my stomach yesterday that I get right now thinking about this Reds front office and the fact that it needs an overhaul. There needs to be drastic changes. There needs to be a dramatic change in direction. But what we're hearing is everything's hunky-dory in Reds land. Everything feels good to Phil Castellini over there at the Reds offices. And the odds are they're just going to run it back. And if this front office runs it back, Lord help us, but there's a lot of changes that need to be made. There are a lot of things that need to be done with this lineup. There's a lot of offseason that we're going to have to talk about, specific positions. And this is just a little bit of a preview, but let's just start where we start every offseason for the last 4 years, for the last 5 years. Let's just start with the fact that they pretty much need an entire new outfield, but assuming that JJ Bleday is going to be an everyday player, they still need 2 outfielders.
Yeah, even with him, that's not saying he helps this outfield equation, because if you look at center field, I've seen a couple of folks talking about this, and they've got a good point. Blake Dunn is hurt right now. He had surgery on his elbow. It wasn't Tommy John. It was something else. And there are expectations that whenever it's announced that camp will start, he should be ready for it. So you will enter Blake Dunn into the outfield equation, but are you going to hand him a starting gig? Are we going to hand Dane Myers a starting gig? He's still got some more to prove, I think, the rest of this way. And maybe he makes us feel better about that. But to me, Steve, these two guys are both for center field because right field, like, are you just going to say, all right, Dane Myers, Blake Dunn, that's center field, right field, and they can play interchangeably? Because that's
the scenario they're setting up. That's exactly what they're setting up.
I don't like that.
That does not make this team any better. That's the exact scenario right now with Nick Krall running this show appears to be JJ Bleday in left, Dane Meyer in center, Blake Dunn in right.
How would an outsider view this? Because I think an outsider would come in and say open competition in center field, open competition in right field, and Lord willing, we go get some talent out there to infuse in those positions.
You know, the thing with the outfield, Jeff, is I think that they're going to move Spencer Steer back to the infield. I think, you know, we'll get into the
first
infield
base
conversation here in a second. I think Spencer Steer's playing first base next year, and I think Sal Stewart's playing either second or third because I don't see them picking up as much as he's finally turned it on a little bit. I don't see them picking up Eugenio Suarez's option.
No, because it's for $15 million. You're going to pay $15 million for a guy that's fighting with the Mendoza line.
Why not? You're paying $7 million for a guy that can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Speaking of which, he will be here. Ke'Bryan Hayes will be part of this equation, but he should not. I mean, if you're going to move Spencer Steer, let's jump into the infield. If you're going to move Spencer Steer to first base full time, which ideally, like defensively, that is his position. So, okay, that's cool. Then Sal should play third. Or are they going to literally stick to the status quo and say Sal plays second, Ke'Bryan Hayes plays third?
I think they're going to have a hard time paying Ke'Bryan Hayes, having him here, and not playing him. But it's exactly what should happen. You know, I have zero faith in Nick Krall. I have zero faith in Nick Krall to go out and get anybody. So if you've got to play dominoes with the dominoes that are here already, then I think
got a lot of blank dominoes, Steve. We got a lot of blank dominoes on this.
I think what I do with the infield is that Spencer Steer plays first base. I think there's an open competition at second base between Matt McLain and Edwin Arroyo. And whichever one of those guys wins it. I think Ellie's at short, and then I think Sal Stewart's your third baseman on a majority of the time basis, occasional DHing, and then Ke'Bryan slots in. And then Jose Treviño is your catcher. I know that you still have some kind of demented hope that they're going to go out and sign Tyler Stevenson. But the fact of the matter is that Ty Steve will not sign a contract with this team. The only wild card in that is that for some reason he hits the open market and every other guy, every other front office is like, nah, we don't want Tyler Stevenson, but I just don't see that happen.
They're not going to do. My hope, and again, you're right, demented, fool's hope, pie in the sky, whatever term you want to use. I'm going to completely admit that. But my hope with this is that it sounds like whatever language is put into the CBA, whether it's a cap floor system, whether it's a harsher competitive balance tax system, there's going to be a bottom to it. There's not going to be this, you can pay $20 million for your roster and it's okay anymore thing. You're going to have to pay X amount of money or pay a penalty because you're below that line. And everything that we keep hearing is around 170 million. So the Reds need to add like 40 to 45 million off of this year's payroll. And this year's payroll, a lot of it's going away. So they're going to have a lot of money to spend, quotes, to get up under this floor. And so for me, that opens up the chance that they could give some of that to Tyler Stevenson. I would hope that they would give some of that to Tyler Stevenson, because without him, you're right. It's Treviño, it's Banfield, it's, I don't know who's going to be in that catching room. And to me, if it's not Stevenson, they've got to be honest with themselves, go out and get another guy to compete with Treviño, because I feel like Treviño was exposed with everyday playing time. He's fine as a once every fifth day option, but now they're doing this thing, and I think this is part of the bad lineup equation in August as well. They're doing this thing where Tyler Stevenson is DHing and they're playing Treviño and Banfield more, and I don't think that's helping.
You you have to account, though, that if the Reds have to spin to get up to a floor, the Cleveland Guardians, oh boy, the Cleveland Guardians, I know, I got to put 5 in a jar. Jesus. The Cleveland Guardians are going to have to, based on the numbers we're hearing,
Guardians,
they're going to double.
Brewers.
They're going to double their payroll. Miami is going to double their payroll. The St. Louis Cardinals are going to go up by 40%-ish. The Athletics are going to go up by 40%-ish. The Washington Nationals are going to add $50 million in payroll. The Chicago White Sox are going to add $50 million in payroll. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to add $50 million in payroll. Tampa Bay is going to add 40, and the list goes on and on and on. So, yeah, the Reds are going to need to spend some money, but so is everybody else, and they have pissed off catcher number 1. He's not signing.
That's the irony. That might be baseball's going to set out to create one of the most ironic phrases ever, and that is that half of the league is going to have to burn money just to get above the poverty line.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going to land. So I have no hope that Ty Steve is back here, which is really sad because he's one of my favorite guys on this team.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't hurt.
That's the Reds' fault.
It doesn't hurt that he's done this show, and we really had a great time talking with him. And
great puppy.
He's just a great human being. So, you know, that doesn't help this feel any better, but he's out of here. Jose Treviño is the catcher number 1 next year. And so, you know, take a look around. Watch what's happening at the catcher position right now, because that's what you get next year without the benefit of Ty Steve being the DH in the lineup. It's going to be Jose Treviño, and whatever guy they can sign off the street is that one of the guys they've got now. Do they go out and get another guy that can't hit? Probably. It's just the way it is. And
I think I saw Kyle Farmer is going to be a free agent.
Well, you know, that wouldn't shock me. We'll put Mikey Biceps in right field. We'll bring back Kyle Farmer. He can catch. You know, we're going to run it back. It's going to be the year of run it back. You know, I never thought I'd be rooting for a year-long lockout, but here we are.
Seems that way. But I know this, Steve. Graham Ashcraft is coming back, and that's good for multiple reasons.
A big thank you to Amazon for this limited break. This is back to school season, and you can spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back to school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on a list, and then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech. When you start buying supplies and find yourself asking, you know, how did a calculator become one of the most expensive items in the shopping cart? I wasn't expecting math to start costing me so much money. But before you know it, that's exactly what happens. It feels like there's a life lesson in there somewhere. I'm still trying to figure all of it out, though. And then you get to the teacher list. When the teacher's school supply list arrives, it can feel like you're maybe trying to open an entire small office all by yourself versus just outfitting one first grader with school supplies. All of the costs for this add up so fast. But remember, when you do your back to school shopping with Amazon, Amazon's low back to school prices can help you spend less on your kids, because every dollar that you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Do your back to school shopping with Amazon. Shop back to school on Amazon right now and spend less money on your kids.
If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of the audio feeds out there. Check us out there today. You can also continue the conversation with us after the show is over on social media. Follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs over on X or on TikTok. You can follow Steve on X at S Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds on every social media app out there. All right, Steve, the Reds are getting Graham Ashcraft back. He's currently in Louisville, starting a rehab assignment. Started yesterday, but getting him back gives the Reds some bullpen stability for this gauntlet that's coming up and sets up the possibility of a healthy offseason for him individually, which that in and of itself might be a huge deal.
The Reds have not been handling rehab assignments very well at all, but I would imagine we're talking 2 weeks in Louisville for Graham Ashcraft? Does that sound
he's
about
probably
right? So
probably back for the first part of like the Brewers like 2-part saga that the Reds are about to have.
You get him late, like September 7th, September 8th, somewhere in that neighborhood. Sounds about right.
After Ludacris does his thing.
I don't know why. Well, that's probably good because I can't imagine that that's a show Graham Ashcraft's going to. He's not driving up from. He is not driving up from Louisville for that. This is you look at Ashcraft and you have to ask yourself the question, like, first, like, who cares? The season's lost. Why does it matter? Here's why it matters. You hit on it there for just a second. Get him back into his routine, let him have a little bit of success, get him spun back up, have him do his things in order to go into the offseason and have a regular offseason. What I want for Graham Ashcraft is for him to pitch a little bit, go into a regular offseason, do the things. Now, what we don't know is if there'll be a regular spring training. There won't, spoiler alert. But have the scenario set up where he could have a regular offseason going into a regular spring training. I feel like the answer is that nobody's going to have a spring training in 2027. But for Graham Ashcraft, finish on a high note, because losing him for the period of time that the Reds have lost him has been a tremendous blow to this bullpen. Graham Ashcraft had firmly established himself as the fireman of this bullpen. He was the guy that, regardless of inning, regardless of situation, regardless of what was going on, if all hell was breaking loose, that's the guy you go to first. He's the guy that comes in and shuts it down. And when he got hurt, when he was no longer an option for Terry Francona, you saw it in the results. You saw the bullpen struggle a little bit. So I look forward to getting Graham Ashcraft back and him finishing on a high note. It matters, for me at least, to get him a regular offseason to make sure everything's okay, to identify if there's some kind of other problem cooking. You know, he didn't have surgery. He didn't do anything. If this injury represents itself, let's know that now so that he can address it now so that he can be ready for next year. Let's not Hunter Green this thing, Jeff, where he shows up in February in Goodyear and is like, ow, my arm hurts. Let's not do that.
Right. And to remind everybody, in case you forgot, Graham Ashcraft sprained his UCL in his throwing elbow back in May. And so that is why I think it's just phenomenal that we're even going to see him pitch this season, because there's probably two schools of thought. Some people would say, well, why not just shut down after it's an elbow injury and the Reds aren't playing for anything? Because if he can come back and he can see his own success coming into the offseason, he doesn't have that looming mental fog, because a lot of pitchers talk about that when they go into off seasons hurt. Yeah, there's a point where they get healthy again, like in December or something like that, and they feel good about throwing and they recover well and all this other stuff. But what they don't know is how professional hitters are going to respond to it. And don't give me he could pitch in the Arizona Fall League. You're not going to feel good about that. You might be facing AA guys at that point. Like, your brain knows when you're at the top of your competition, and he's going to be facing the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Cubs. He's going to be facing the Braves and the Blue Jays at this point. So he will be facing the top lineups in this league. And that's something he can go into the offseason feeling good about going into next season and being that fireman once again. Because you're right. Like, there have been multiple situations where you're just like, boy, you need somebody fresh who can really get you out of this. And there have been moments where Brock Burke is pitching well. There have been moments where Luis May is pitching well, where TJ Anton's pitching well. But there's also been moments where those guys have not been pitching well. For the most part, Graham Ashcraft was consistently good before getting hurt. And so Terry Francona's had to play musical chairs in the bullpen to fill this fireman role. To get his dude back would be huge for the team.
You know, you talk about Graham Ashcraft and you talk about the performance and just looking at what he's been able to do. You know, I wonder if it is a mental thing for him that the team's trying to give him, because you're right. Every pitcher that I've ever talked to, and at this point, shockingly, I've talked to a lot of them. Never thought that would happen in my lifetime. But every major league pitcher I've ever talked to will tell you that there is absolutely no way to replicate a body response to pitching in a Major League Baseball game. The adrenaline, the amount of energy that runs through your system, the amount of fire that you're able to generate in a Major League game on a Major League mound facing a Major League hitter. Doesn't matter what you do in a side session. It doesn't matter what you do down there in the bullpen. Doesn't matter what you do in a rehab assignment. It never equals that big league mound facing that big league hitter. And I get it. And so that's why I think this is important. Now, you know, there's a piece of me that wants to be like, no, just keep him shut down and we'll go to spring training and let's fresh start this thing. If we were talking about a hitter, we were talking about Spencer Steer. If we were talking about Spencer Steer right now,
totally
that would be my answer. But like, there's no reason that when they said he won't be back this year, I'm like, cool, I'm fine with that. Pitchers are a little bit different. So I am for getting him back on a big league mound this season for a lot of the mental aspect of it, Jeff, because he's going to be an important piece whenever this team plays another baseball game, whether that's 2027 or 2028. Graham Ashcraft's going to matter.
Yeah, because I think what we've underrated and what we saw a lot this offseason was the Reds spending a lot of money, signing free agents in the bullpen. And I think what we really underrate is that the core of your bullpen, the backbone of your bullpen, needs to be guys that have come up through your system, not simply because they are trained in the ways of the Reds. We've learned that might not necessarily be the best case. But the idea is that they're a little bit cheaper than those free agents. And like Graham Ashcraft, Tony Santillan, those guys going to make a lot less money than Emilio Pagan. So they're going to open up the ability for the Reds to spend money elsewhere, like the lineup that we really need them to do. And that's why Graham Ashcraft is so important to this team moving forward. I'm excited about it. I think, like you said, he's going to have a little bit of a lengthier stay in Louisville. They're going to try to pitch him back-to-back days, making sure that the elbow responds well. Because like we said, this is an elbow injury, so you got to really make sure that you know. That way he doesn't come back and like first game back messes it up, and now he's out for the next year and a half. But I think that we will see this play out. And like you said, he's going to be back here, I'd say, when they're playing against Milwaukee. And, after Ludacris has done his whole chicken and beer and talking about all the different songs that he's got, I think that that's going to be some fun things to see this bullpen get a little bit better. But
yeah, is that the same day you're going to do the tarps off? Is that when we're doing the TikTok tarps off?
No, I don't
Ludacris
think so.
Day? Because that fits. That should be Ludacris Day.
That's TBND, to be never determined. So when it comes to anyway, yeah, whatever. We're getting out of this mess. Thanks so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed. We're going to be with you every single day, all throughout this season, all throughout the off season, every season. We're talking Reds on Locked On Reds. So make sure you subscribe. You can also follow us on social media. Follow Steve and myself. You can follow Steve at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. You can follow me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There's no Fs in that. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make Locked On MLB your second listen. Until next time, you know that Steve, myself, and Tim Daniel, by the way, suffering on the postcast, will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Does Hannah just spend her whole life shouting, "Jeff, put a tarp on"? Is that a thing at your house?
Not really a tarp.
For the love of God, put a tarp on.
Old shirts, don't really
text
call
her
them
right now. I'm going to text her right
shirts.
now and tell her. I'm texting her right now and telling her